What I brought together for you are all different materials, images about nests, nestlings, and fledglings, which I hope you'll enjoy. There's some quiz parts of fledglings to ID and nests to ID. And then there's some content in between that's whittled down from a program we do about bird architecture. So a little bit about floating nests, hanging nests, cavity nests, nests that last for years, and birds with no nests at all. So I got really inspired by this several years ago by this book, which is still available. And it's a very cool book. This guy is a designer. He's an engineer. And what he did was look across the avian spectrum at all the different structure ideas that birds use for their nests and kind of made blueprints of all of them, as you would as an engineer. I don't want to spoil the inside of this book nor violate his copyright too much. So I just encourage you to look that up online. Amazon has some pages you can view if you're just intrigued of how he's doing it. But I mention that because I took his scheme for categorizing nests. As always, I want to give credit for the sources of our video and sound clips used with permission. You can see that online. But first of all, for some of you, this is still pretty new. So for some, you're very experienced. So just have some patience for a moment on the basic background. I just want to make sure we're on the same page on that when we're talking about nests. Most nests are used only to hold the egg and the young. Some folks think of them like our houses and think that birds go back and live in them, and they don't. And the songbird nests, like the robin one pictured here, are only used once, right? Once 1 year, and then they'll build new ones. But other nests are used many years, decades sometimes, if they hold up. This is a great picture, isn't it? Steve Sachs got this. Of an eagle nest, and many times those are historic. They're becoming historic now that eagles have restored to our area, and that nest will be used year after year, platform nests. But the nest building just fascinates me, and it's going on right now. If you go to Rockefeller and walk around the lake there, or you go to any lakes, waters, I know you might know some other areas, the orioles are building like crazy, if not finished. And it's amazing what they do. In this case, an oriole, they're weaving a basket. Somebody took one of these apart and found there was between 5,000 and 6,000, I forget the number, of over and under stitches in that plant material that they wove together into a basket. It's pretty amazing, especially when you consider, right? It's all done with their bills. So I think that's very cool. So scientists will tell us that that's, genetic knowledge plus experience. Some younger birds don't build as well as older birds. But looking at that scheme of different nests, just again, this is intro, and we're going to have a little quiz here. In fact, I thought I had some, let me just check something here a second, because I thought I did. Let me jump back to the other one here. Thinking about nests, I have a little quiz for you just to get started and keep your interest on fledglings. Now, some of you that were on the walk, you can't answer this question. All right. On the ground and in the tree. Yeah, Vivian has seen some fledglings. Good. So if anybody else who wasn't on the walk to Rockefeller with us, where this picture was taken by Ada, thank you, Ada, want to guess what this is here? Anybody want to say what kind of fledgling it is? You can use the chat box if you want. I'll give you a moment to think about it, whether you type or not. Yeah, this family of birds all have kind of bare faces as fledglings, so they look kind of weird. It's interesting, right? Oh, somebody typed something there. Let's see. Yep, grackle. Good, Rogu. That's exactly right, of course. Not much of a tail compared to what it'll have as an adult, but a big, robust body. And that funny bare face that whole family has, the icterids. Common grackle was by Swan Lake. What do you think about this one? I'm giving you a little bit of easy pitch here. Which baby do you think this is? Any takers on that? Sometimes it's hard to tell the shape of the bill because you notice the big gape there, right? The big gape in the corner that makes a bigger target for the moms and dads stuffing food down there. Yeah, good for you. That's cardinal. Yeah, good. Couple of you got that guess. Again, no tail, and that's a key thing to notice. These are fledglings. They're fully feathered, but they've left the nest. They can't fly well yet, even though they have good wing feathers. They can't steer because their tail hasn't grown in yet. No room for that in a songbird's nest. And so they spend 2, 3, 4 days in the shrub layer, hopefully. But the first day, they might be in the middle of your lawn. The thing to do, of course, is not to rescue. And this is good words for you to pass to neighbors and family. Don't rescue, but get them up, get them off the ground, put them up into a shrub, and the parents do feed them while they are doing that next awkward stage of learning to fly, but outside the nest. Just had 2 fledgling calls this afternoon. People wanted to rescue. Northern cardinal, absolutely. All right, here's a little more challenging one. You can actually see some pin feathers there. When the feathers grow out, they look like straws. And then the straw opening opens and, yeah, fuzzy underneath. Pin feathers here. Anybody have a guess on this bird? It's got a little bit of its adult coloring. It's got one field mark that, oh yeah, the bill looks big enough. And look at the little hook on the end. That's a clue to this bird too. Don't be fooled by the size. There's a hand there. Try to think about how small this bird is. It is relatively small. I'll give you a hint. Oh, there you go. Rogu is hitting it. You are hitting it. Robin, you are very close too. This is a vireo, and it is a young red-eye vireo. Pretty amazing, right? Little fledgling red-eye vireo, and actually has a little eye line like the adult. And the eyes are dark in those juveniles. Good one. All right. So what do you think about this? This is a little harder. I should give you some clues here. This bird is going to be pretty much sparrow size as an adult, or as it goes into its juvenile plumage. I'll show you next. But this is a fledgling, first out of the nest, another bare face, no tail, and doesn't really have any of the color that it might have later. Anybody have a guess on this bird? Any guesses are okay. It is not a kind of sparrow. Carolina wren, that's not a bad guess because it's brown. Catbird, also not a bad guess. Nope, nope. It's going to have something of a seed eater bill. It's going to have a triangular bill there. It's a little hard to see again with that big fledgling gape, fledgling nestling gape. It is sort of like a finch. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you a big hint here. Let's see who can type the fastest. The male is blue. Oh, that's a good guess too, Bernie Goldfinch. Not a redwing. Yeah, bunting, indigo bunting. That's right. This is a fledgling indigo bunting. Crazy, right? I looked at this one a long time. Here's what it looks like in its juvenile plumage once it's all grown out. You know, it might have a little bit of blue suggesting it's a soldier's shoulders, but it has that interesting cinnamony color, which you can sort of see a hint of there. Then that conical seed-eating bill. Cool. Good job. Okay, here's another one. Another fledgling for you. Let's see what clues I can give you. Goldfinch, somebody is guessing. That's going to be a very thin pointed bill after the gape leaves. It's got a fairly thin insect plucking bill, and it's quite small. Nope, quite small. It's hard to tell from this picture. Not a mockingbird, good guess. It's got a little bit of color showing on those feathers back there. It's a bird of the shrub layer. And yeah, some kind of warbler. That's it. We're getting there. Rogu has it. Yeah, Robin got it. Yeah, it's a yellow warbler. That's right. It's a fledgling yellow warbler. Crazy, right? Little tufties and fuzzies. That's another clue you're looking at, a fledgling. It's got those little things. Here's what it looks like once it's a little cleaned up and grown up. They can be quite gray, those, you know, first summer yellow warblers in the fall too. Cool. All right. So I just want to warm you up with that. And let me just jump back to what I was doing here with, oh, that's not it. Let's see if I can jump back to the other show. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Got to jump over here. There we go. So yeah, all kinds of nests and all kinds of stages of young birds. I like this slide. I was inspired by the New York State Young Birders Club, who one of their students, one of their precocial students, good word for the topic tonight, did a great program on the evolution of dinosaurs and how birds are dinosaurs today in many ways. Of course they are. But the ancestors were building nests, right? And laying eggs. And they were building nests to protect their eggs and young long before we have our modern birds. So there's your question. The egg came first, not the chicken. It's cool, right? Some of those ancestors were learning more and more. They just discovered another one, I think, the other day. But those nests, we suspect, of those dinosaurs slash birds, were much like the megapodes, which is Australian breast turkey. The nest that they build is crazy. These men are standing on top of the nest, and it's actually a huge pile. And much like their cousins, the turtles, they lay the eggs and leave, right? They don't have any tending of the eggs or the young, and they build it like this so it has some heat to cook in there. And the precocial chick, precocial means they have their eyes open, they can run or swim right away pretty soon after hatching. This is what one of their chicks look like, right? It's amazing. So those mound nests are the largest ones in the world, 15 feet across, 5 feet high. And they actually can fly right away, which I think is pretty amazing. But our turkeys do pretty well too. I just had a gaggle come marching across the yard the other day, and at 2 weeks, they have their flight feathers. They look like fuzzy cheeks, but they can fly up. They look like little fuzzy chicks, but they can fly up into the trees, and they have to, because they have to roost with their mom at night to avoid being somebody's treat. So that's much the same, precocial. So if a bird is precocial, a lot of times it's a ground nester, right? A vulnerable nesting place. Eyes open, they have some down, and they leave the nest pretty quickly. They don't stay there on the ground. And there's different levels of precocity. You can see those listed there. Whether they feed themselves or their parents show them food, etc. So we're familiar with this precocial nesting scheme. This is a killdeer, our inland shorebird. So they make a scrape nest, right? And they can regulate the temperature by how deep they dig. Really heavy camouflage. They look just like rocks. And ground eggs, of course, many of you know, have a point, much like chicken eggs, so that when they roll in a circle. Isn't this amazing? Look at that image. Even the chick is camo. And they run like the wind. I had to round up killdeer chicks once that fell into a bad place in Chappaqua. It was pretty hard. They run very fast. Little stick legs, puffball. But then the other nesting scheme many of us are familiar with are cavity nesters, and so their young develop completely differently. So cavities can be holes and tunnels, also good protection from predators. Two kinds of cavity nesters, ones that dig it themselves and one that reuse. Some birds can do either, like a chickadee. If it's a soft snag, you could push your finger in, standing dead tree. They'll actually excavate their own cavity. Cool. So here's some cavity nesters. And I always find these really interesting to find and to watch, right? The ones that can dig the hole are at the top. The ones that use a hole are down at the bottom. And there's some surprises there. There's some waterfowl, right? Wood duck, merganser, bufflehead, wooded merganser, a flycatcher in that list. Very interesting. And cavities often get reused year-round. The screech owl, this was a cavity at Croton Point of a tree that later came down. And they'll use them for shelter in winter, too. There's a chickadee we saw excavating a cavity. And a lot of times the nuthatches do their own cavity, and they always seem to look for like a bud scar. I found maybe a half dozen nuthatches nests in my life, and they all seem to be around a bud scar like that wood is softer that they made their hole in. And then the great crested that we're hearing weeping in all the forests right now are cavity nesters. I like this picture carrying pine straws. They'll use a nest box if it's big enough. That's a fake hollow tree for them. Or a woodpecker hole like one made by a flicker. So the cool thing is that these cavity nesters, to finish up this intro stuff here and got another quiz for you on nests, the cavity nesters actually can finish developing inside that hole for quite a while. So 28 days to fledge. Fledge means that they leave the nest, right? They may not be flying, but they've broken the bond with the nest. So they're fledglings. They've left the nest. Um, so 28 days for a flicker, but a cup nester that's in an exposed nest in a tree like a robin, it's only 2 weeks roughly from the time the egg hatches to the time the young jumps out. That is fast. And it's kind of a good figure to keep in your head when people get upset about a nest being in the wrong place. You know, I tell them, look, it's not that long. If you can just spare some space here, they will be on their way. They're not going to live there all summer. So the cool idea, looking at a cross section, for example, of a flicker nest and how big they might make that cavity. And of course, this is my fun fact that I just learned in the last year. I've been telling everybody because I'm so amazed by it. Does anybody know what kind of bird this is? I'll just say that. It's a cavity nester. It's waterfowl. And if you've been on one of my bird walks, I've talked about this one too much because I'm just fascinated by the fact that they're cavity nesters too. You recognize that female duck there? Yeah, bufflehead. There you go. So in their northern forest area, male bufflehead in the front, females in the back. They've left our waters now to go back north. They just come to us for the winter, of course. They used old flicker holes. So here's the mom looking out, and they do the same thing that wood ducks do. These babies get born in there 20, 30 feet up, and boo, they all jump out and bounce. I think that's great. Look at them going. That is so fun. All right. But the opposite of that, and this is where we get a lot of calls and where you can help really educate friends, neighbors, family. A lot of the songbirds are completely altricial. Okay, it's completely opposite of precocial. When they're born in those nests, they're nidicolous. I like that word. They need the nest. Their eyes aren't open. They're kind of like the way gerbils and hamsters get born, if you've endured that in your household. Just little pink gumdrops squirming around with their eyes closed. They need the nourishment. And I got a neat series here from a rehabber, Place for Wild Birds, on flickers. Here's a 3-day-old flicker. Here's 7 days old. You can start to see the feather tracks developing. They look like straws coming out. They're pretty hideous looking, actually. Very dinosaur looking. Look, you can see their ears. Usually you don't see birds' ear holes because they're covered with feathers. And still a nestling, considered a nestling, could not survive outside the nest, even being fed by the parents, because it doesn't have the thermoregulation or the feather covering yet. Look at those pin feathers coming in. It's pretty amazing. Now a lot of them have sprouted. 17 days. Look at the, you can still see the quill cases, right? Still a lot of pink skin. Still considered a nestling. Got that gape around the bill. 22 days. They're getting ready to go. They might make it if the tree got hurt. They might survive outside. They can cling. They've got enough feathers. But now they're really ready to go. A little bit more. And they want out. They were let out after this too. And parents will feed them outside while they're learning. So this is a great graphic, and I'm going to give you a QR code here in a moment if you have your phone and you're interested in some background info here. This is a graphic that we try to post every year to help people know. The first question is whether it's a nestling or a fledgling on the songbird. And it has to do with how feathered it is, as you just saw. And then most of the time, almost all the time, I tell people, put it back. Just put it in the shrubs and walk away. Keep cats, dogs, kids away. Let nature take its course. It really kind of swamps our rehabbers to people bringing in birds they don't need to bring in. Even nestlings, I'm afraid, I usually say put them back outside. A lot of times people find nestlings when they've been taken out of a nest by a predator and accidentally dropped. And it's not a good outcome, even to get it to a rehabber. And when they're that young, they almost always imprint on people, and they can't be a wild bird anymore. It's a tough season, guys. I remember weeping as a child at all the baby birds. If you have your phone and you hit that QR code, I'll show it a little bit later. There's some great handouts about nests, including the one I just did. And it'll give you that link, and I'll also send it out after the chat because it's important information to share. One of the key things that we're passing out this time of year is this reference now, which is Animal Help Now. It's an app. You can just get it and put it on your phone and have it. It knows where you are and when you are, and it will recommend the rehabbers depending what kind of wildlife you say you want to help, birds and other wildlife. You can also just go to animalhelpnow.org And that's a really, really good reference. That's nationwide now. It's a really good clearinghouse of volunteer rehabbers, and that's what they are. So just one other PSA, and then we're going to get to a nesting quiz. One of the things that happen with all the storms we're getting now, and they're going to keep increasing, and all the impacts on our forests like ash tree decline and oaks and gypsy moth damage, so other things, we have a lot of standing dead trees. Obviously, if this tree is standing by somebody's house, car, driveway, walkway, we're probably going to have to take it down. But wherever we can, certainly in Audubon sanctuaries and elsewhere, we really encourage these snags, as they're called, to be left up. Because standing dead trees are really important to birds and other wildlife. We have kind of an arborophobia that's developed since some of our big storms around here, and people cutting down trees that they don't really need to cut down, but they're just anxious about them, right? But the more trees we can protect, the better for many kinds of wildlife, including birds for nesting. So foresters know that trees go through a cycle even after they die. They go through a hard snag phase where you can knock on them still, right? And then the soft snag phase. And I mentioned to you before, like chickadees and other birds can excavate, can dig a cavity in soft snags. So soft snags, say that fast, are really important to leave around as well, if you can. Just a quick look at how different these are, right? So the flickers are the real estate developers in the forest. They dig the holes that the birds use. And they all dig different holes. Flickers will, dig in often in live trees, sometimes in structures. They often reuse their cavities. This is from another program, so I'm going to go a little quickly here. Our two black and white woodpeckers, which turn out not to be that related, curiously, genetically, Downy and Hairy shown well here. They have very different nests that they make, and then their holes are used by other birds. So the Downy actually likes soft snags, a little bit more suburban, and they dig a new nest cavity annually. So that's a lot of new houses they make. They also dig a winter cavity sometimes to roost, and that's where they're sometimes get in trouble in the fall on houses because they think houses are just a big weird looking tree. They don't know. Hairy woodpecker has a real different micro niche, if you will. It likes the hard snags, can be pretty high up. It likes older trees, so older forests for hairy woodpeckers. New nest cavity annually. So again, they're making new holes, and other things then live in their old holes. Yeah. And then our biggest guy, right, the pileated, really needs older trees. And it has some certain preferences if you're trying to find a pileated woodpecker. It likes a bark-free hard snag, and it likes to be near water. And they are lessening their shyness of humans. If you look at old field guides, they'd say, oh, deep woods, you're not likely to see them. But the suburban forest along our megapolis from Atlanta to Boston, the suburban forest has aged since World War II. So we have lots of older trees around suburbia, and people are seeing pileated woodpeckers a lot more than even 25, 30 years ago. But okay, so just to finish here on two things, nest boxes are fake hollow trees, right? You just saw pileated, great, that's excellent. So as we finish up here a bit, I just want to talk about nest boxes and remind people, because some people mix this up, and I'm not making fun here because, we put up different structures for birds. So this is not for food. This is basically a fake hollow tree that we put up of a certain size hole to attract birds that need cavities. And of course, the most famous bird that's really been brought back in larger numbers is our state bird, eastern bluebird, with the nest boxes. I know there's people online tonight that are part of the nest box monitor network in this county that Sandy Morrissey does a great job with. And we try to do a great job providing them with healthy homes. And they make a beautiful nest inside. And they're cousins of the robins. They have robin egg blue. Here's a great look. If you go online, there's a lot of nest cams that let you spy inside boxes and watch these going on. And I think that's pretty cool to see. You can see these nestlings are only a few days old. A lot of times when you open these boxes, you realize how popular they are. This one had 3 different birds adding nesting material. And so people that monitor the boxes can tell many times what bird is using it by the nesting material inside. And there has been an idea of putting them up paired. Some people are drifting away from that. You'll see that at Rockefeller and others. They'll let a different bird nest this close, but not one of their species. So it makes space for both kinds, tree swallows in this case. There's a neat look inside a box. Same size box for bluebirds might attract a chickadee. And then speaking of holes, before we talk about platforms and nests, I really would love to watch more than I've had a chance to belted kingfishers. They dig a hole in a bank. So they're cavity nesters, but their cavity is in dirt. So they dig this hole, and you can tell it's a kingfisher hole because it'll have these two grooves down the front here as they come and go. And it looks like this, apparently, cross section. Very cool, right? Inside the bank. And a couple neat pictures that this photographer got of the eggs, which you can see are round, right? Interesting. For cavity, a lot of cavity nesters have more rounded eggs. They don't need to be pointed like a ground nester. And very young kingfishers, and then one's about to go. And speaking of cavities, there are tropical birds that use cavities. Many of us know trogons and some of the parrots. And I really like this picture. How's that for an artificial nesting structure? You know how big those Rubbermaids are, and that'll give you an idea of how big scarlet macaws are. They've actually been able to benefit them with these artificial nesting cavities. They don't look great, but they got the job done. And lastly, thinking about a constructed cavity, which is what some of these birds do. Ovenbird, named for the bake oven shaped pile of vegetation, it kind of constructs its cavity, this ground nesting warbler. Dome nest. Same advantage of cavity nesting, and you'll find it in grassland and ground nesters. The wrens, some of the wrens, Carolina wren and winter wren, both make pile nests, dome nests. So they're really constructing a cavity, which is very cool, I think. And so does the meadowlark, right? Out in the grasses, it builds a dome nest and helps protect its eggs that way too. Okay, so good thing to do when you're looking for some of the classic nests, the songbird nests, and you're trying to figure out who lives there, you want to ID what it's made out of, how high it is, how it's attached, what the lining is, and of course if there's eggs in there, that can help you too. And again, these are for young that are altricial, and they also need that nest, nidicolous young. Classic nest of a vireo is this woven cup, like we saw at Rockefeller the other day. Very tightly woven of plant fibers. Here's a close-up of a warbling vireo nest. Same design. You see that on the fork there? So much weaving. A blue jay, though, looks like a heap of sticks from underneath, right? Male and female are identical. They hide the nest rather than the female being camouflaged. Very high up, usually. But the inside is really well lined. Beautiful yellow-green eggs, and then the young. And then the cardinal is in the understory, right? So she's camouflaged. And this one is actually a picture I took at Marshlands in the parking lot through a scope, digiscope picture of a blue-gray gnatcatcher weaving this nest of lichens and spider webs, which I think is a wonderful kind of nest. Okay, so talk about platform nests and then some resources and then a nesting quiz for you. So again, as we started out by saying, these big nests are often reused. It could be a crow nest, could become a Cooper's hawk nest, then become an owl nest. And platform nesters are kind of different. They're semi-altricial. These platforms could be up in the trees, arboreal, or on the ground. Semi-altricial means they hatch with down, and they remain in the nest to be fed, and then they start climbing about pretty soon. Herons do what's called branching, so do owls and hawks. Owls hatch with their eyes closed, and hawks and herons hatch with their eyes open. It's pretty neat to watch. This is a picture Steve Sachs took of red-tailed hawk gathering sticks at Croton Point as early as January to rehab its nest there. And you'll often see them sitting together as the year turns. After New Year's, a male much smaller on the left and the female much larger on the right, mated pair. And then a lot of people have gotten great pictures of the red-tailed hawk nest at Croton Point from a distance, further away. You see the platform nest, see the evergreen they like to add to it, and then the nestlings there. Interesting at great horned owls, it can be cavity nesters or platform nest. They take over. A barred owl prefers a cavity, and this is a great series of pictures Steve Rappaport got at one of our county parks. I won't say where. Can you see what's in there? Let me go a little closer. There's the little one looking out. So he was able to watch this nest and get some really neat pictures here. Here's the monkey-faced young barred owls getting ready. Getting ready to get a little more time to cook in there till they're presentable. And then a handsome, fully adult barred owl. All right. So I also mentioned that we're going to look at a bird that has no nest at all, and that's the cowbird, which is adapted, we saw lots of these out west, to follow grazing animals. And so it doesn't build its own nest. It lays its eggs in other birds' nests. This is a song sparrow feeding a cowbird that grew up in its nest. Look how big it is. We don't like to see that so much. They are pretty amazing birds, though. The female at the top is one of the, I think it's a bird of like no field marks at all. And the male at the right. They are in the icterids with blackbirds and orioles, but they have the most conical bill of all the members of their family. So no nest, right? They just lay their eggs in other birds' nests. And they're considered parasitized nest. This is a phoebe's nest. It has 3 brown spotted cowbird eggs in it. If you take them out, the cowbirds will lay more. And sometimes if you take them out, they'll destroy the host family eggs in retaliation. No kidding. These eggs are protected by federal law, so it would be not right if I told you. But some people shake these eggs. They addle them. They pick up the egg, addle it so it won't hatch, and then put it back in the nest so the brown-headed cowbird doesn't know that it's, not going to hatch. And the host birds, if the egg doesn't hatch in their own hatch, they'll just push out the eggs that didn't hatch. It's one solution if you find these. But, of course, use your own judgment on that. This is a hard one. That's a brown-headed cowbird nestling, right? A hatchling, really, is what we call them when they're first out like this. And then the smaller host species, that's a white-eyed vireo. Crazy, right? Look at that size difference already between these two. So they do compete for food. They do knock back some native species by parasitizing their nests. And I'm going to give you a quizzy here if you know which nest this is. Anybody have an idea? I'll tell you, this picture is taken from above, and this nest is about 7 feet up in the understory of a forest. 7 feet up in the understory in the forest. Is there a distinction between a birdhouse and a bird nesting box? No, it's just different words, Ronan. Good question. Different words. Anybody have a guess on this nest? Bright blue eggs like other members of its family. Bright blue eggs, but it's not a robin's nest. Oh, good one, Jacqueline. You got right on that. Nope, it's not a robin's nest. It's in the forest in the understory. Bluebird will be a cavity nester. But you're right, they have blue eggs too. Joanne got it. This is a wood thrush nest. Rogu did too. Yeah, this is a wood thrush nest that has 3 wood thrush eggs and 3 brown-headed cowbird eggs. Sheesh. Yeah, there you go. And actually, there's a clue here for you. If you look around the edge of this nest, it has a lot of leaves woven in that are hanging down. And a lot of time wood thrush nests have hanging leaves down, often beech leaves, as long as we have those in the forest, and others. It has this sort of untidy but camo look around the edge. There's a wood thrush on its nest. All right, try this one. I will tell you that this nest is in the shrubs. It's in the shrubs, and it has lots of bark around the edges. I kind of gave you a preview of this nest earlier. Yeah, there you go. It is a cardinal nest, very classic in the shrubs. Northern cardinal nest with its spotted eggs. Now this nest is another shrub nest woven really tight of plant fibers. This is a very small bird. It's a small insect-eating bird with a fine bill. Lives in the shrubs. Well, lots and lots of these nests at Croton Point, I would wager. all around. Oh, you had a cardinal in your yard. That's great, Rogu. Yeah. And not yellowthroat. Good guess, Robin. No, not big enough. Oh, too big for hummingbird. Sorry, hummingbird nest is like, well, you can't really tell size from the picture, but no, not a hummingbird. Another warbler. We actually met it earlier in the program. Shrub dwelling warbler. Anybody want to say? I'll go ahead. Yeah, yellow warbler. It's a yellow warbler nest. Pretty interesting, right? Look how much that is woven. A lot of times they'll use a lot of milkweed fibers. And here's the mother at the nest with nestlings. Okay, this one is a terrible picture, but kind of illustrates what this nest looks like from the side, which is just a pile on the branch. And if you see the tail sticking out, there's a clue for you in the tail. Yeah, they will, Vivian. They'll watch the behavior. Once the first nest has been laid, the cowbird will go there. I wonder if anybody has a guess on this nest. And not kingbird, good guess, because it has a light colored tail band at the end. Not a kingbird, although they have kind of a piley looking nest too. But this is not the kingbird. We had a lot of these in the woods right now, vocalizing. Anybody see that tail? Yeah, waxwing. There you go. This is a cedar waxwing nest. And there's the mother upright now with her hatchlings. And you can see that yellow terminal tail band. Cool. Okay, I'll end on this one because I love this. I love this picture. It's a great picture. I think some of you can probably guess on this. Yeah, this is Oriole. A lot of people are coming in on that. This is an Oriole. Look at the little one sticking its head out there. A woven basket nest. That's an excellent nest. And here's the father with his hands full because he's got fledglings. So here's a reminder. They have clambered out of the nest. They don't have a tail. They are pretty feathered. Do you see how bare their faces are? All the icterids, they all have that bare face. The blackbirds, the grackles. They look weird. You know what, Bernie, I was going to look that up on cuckoos. I don't know that answer. That would be a good one to answer. But here's these guys leaving this Oriole nest. And now it's going to be 4 times the work to feed them because they're going to be scattered. So there's a lot of great resources out there. If you want to go deeper in this, I've got a PDF I use with this full program. This is an abbreviated version of that program. And if you're interested to get that, again, that QR code will get you that PDF that has all the resources. And it'll also have that one pager on what to do when you find a baby bird. So you focus your camera on that and you can get that. And I'll also send it out with the resources because this is a really good info that you can help share with others. The one book, the new Peterson Field Guide to, relatively new in the last few years, is really very neat. It's got a lot of illustrations about eggs, and it really goes into depth on how to ID. Indigo buntings have that same side untidiness as wood thrush. Do you see that? That's interesting. So, and if you're not familiar with Birds of the World, that is an amazing online resource. It's constantly updated with new information. You can look up, for example, about a bird, peregrine falcons here. It'll tell you their nesting cycle, when in the year they're doing what, pictures of eggs, where they build, all that kind of stuff. So that's Birds of the World. If you join NYSOA, by the way, NewYorkBirds.org, you get a discounted subscription to Birds of the World. I use it all the time to look up information, like the question that Bernie just asked about cuckoos. I'll probably go there and look and see what they are. And then if you want to enjoy looking at nests, yeah, go to All About Birds. It's our one stop from Cornell. And they have a whole link for nest cams. And you can watch a lot of nests right now that have nest cams on them. And then the one really great resource, if you want to put up boxes, you want to monitor nests, you want to take care of birds, is nestwatch.org. It's a whole other citizen science channel from Cornell Lab of Ornithology. It'll tell you what box to put up for what bird, how high, how to monitor boxes. Really great information.